Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to Ben's Brain Podcast. Today we have special guest Jack Taylor. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
It's good. So it's my understanding that we have two very different views on whether the media negatively or does not negatively affect the portrayal of war. And so today, for you guys, we're going to argue a different side, and it's going to be pretty casual, but it's just going to be a good conversation. We're going to see what each of us have to bring to the table. What do you think about that, Jack?
I think that's a great plan.
All right. So today, I'm going to be talking about how our understanding of war is negatively affected by the media's portrayal and coverage. And Jack, what are you going to be talking about?
I'm going to be talking about how our understanding of war is not negatively affected by the media's portrayal and coverage.
All right, sounds good. Let's get into it. In my personal opinion, I believe that one way the media has negatively affected people's perspective on war is through propaganda. Although there were some early examples of war propaganda involving the media dating back to the early 19th century, the First World War was the first war in which belligerent governments deliberately created organizations to generate and direct propaganda at their enemies, allies, at neutrals, and at their own populations. As an essential part of the way they waged the war, the First World War came at a time when a variety of interaction, political, social, commercial, military, and technological factors had produced a wide range and variety of media through which propaganda could be disseminated, including both official and unofficial channels, newspapers, speeches, films, photographs, posters, books, pamphlets, periodicals, and cartoons. One poster I saw states, "Your chums are fighting, why aren't you?" These posters are used as propaganda to instill guilt into men to get them to join. However, these posters gave negative connotations to men who would not join. As a result of these posters, men who did not enlist would be seen as weak, cowardly, or even traitorous. During World War I, in Germany, a lot of propaganda was used to gain support from the German people. In one such poster, it shows a German strangling a Russian, Frenchman, and kicking an American. This made it seem as if they were winning, and this was not the case, so when the Germans lost, they felt very betrayed. Another point is that in the Cold War, media coverage between America, its allies, and the Soviet Union served to escalate domestic fear of the imminent destruction. The Red Scare was what it was called. And this was a campaign of Western media that were presented on every applicable media source. The use of print with easily decodable and emotive images helped to redefine national identity as a virtuous and patriotic America against a dangerous and destructive socialist East. Lastly, during World War II, we saw Disney joining in on the propaganda as they launched cartoons to shift and ensure patriotism towards America, as well as demonstrate a false reality about Germany. I vividly remember watching this cartoon in history class. Mickey Mouse falls asleep and awakens in his highly industrialized society covered in swastikas. Every few seconds, Mickey was forced to say, "Heil Hitler," and if he didn't, he was threatened with guns. Due to Disney's incredible influence in the media, this campaign was quite effective and proves how the war has affected the media. Now, when we connect this to Persepolis, there's a major scenario where propaganda is introduced, not to shame the enemy, but to trick their own citizens into certain death. On page 99, we see that the Iranian regime began tricking the minds of adolescents to get them to fight. In school systems, the boys were given plastic keys spray painted gold, and they were told that if they were lucky enough to die, then their key would get them to heaven. As a result, we saw that many young men would die because they were taught to glorify death. Also, throughout Persepolis, we notice how Marjane and her father noticed that the government always presents fake news and statistics on television to make it seem as if they were winning the war. It is for these reasons that our understanding of war is negatively impacted by the media's portrayal and coverage. Now we're going to move on to Jack Taylor and see what he has to say about this argument.
So I have a different spin on the matter. I think that our understanding of war is not negatively affected by the media's portrayal and coverage for the most part. So my first point is that Great Britain and the other main powers in Europe changed their understanding of propaganda. They took interest in how propaganda interacted with larger issues like domestic attitudes and morale. Propaganda gave valuable evidence in how the government thought people would react if they just did react. Also, after the Tet Offensive, which was a Vietnam War conflict, the media coverage of the positive. the things were televised for civilian casualties and infantry casualties above all else. Meaning that the media wanted people to see what the Vietnam War was actually like. Victory stories of the war became much more rare. Things like executions during the war were televised and had a big effect on public emotions for the war. As the war went on, public support went to an all-time low. The Tet Offensive also occurred, marking a major turning point in the war. Even though it was a clear victory for the U.S., media did not agree. The media focused on one of the bloodiest battles, the Battle of Hue and the Viet Cong attack on the U.S. Embassy. The media missed a winning story in the big picture, causing support for the war to plummet. The media clearly had a problem with the U.S. being involved in another war, so they wanted to get people. They wanted the people to know how violent and unforgiving the war was. This exposed war for what it actually is, not skewing our thoughts on it.
So, after listening to your side of the argument, I think that it's not necessarily that either all media directs propaganda to a certain event, in this case war, or it's not necessarily that the media is always good. I think it's just a specific person or a specific media outlet that might decide to inflict propaganda upon its citizens or its viewers, or whether that just be the government or say CNN, for example. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it comes more down to a morale issue, and what the actual person is thinking at the time he's directing propaganda. It's not all media is always out to get war.
And that's all the time we have today for Adam's Brain. This is episode 3. Thanks for coming, Jack.
No problem.
It's a good conversation.